The Cold War, spanning from 1947 to 1991, was a prolonged period of ideological, political, and military rivalry between the United States and the Soviet Union, shaping global geopolitics for nearly half a century. Rooted in the post-World War II power vacuum and the stark ideological divide between American capitalism and Soviet communism, the conflict did not manifest in direct military confrontation between the two superpowers, but rather in a series of proxy wars, strategic alliances, nuclear arms races, and psychological warfare. The U.S. strategy of containment, first articulated by diplomat George Kennan, aimed to prevent the spread of communism globally through a combination of military alliances, economic aid, and interventionist policies. This policy materialized through significant actions like the Truman Doctrine, which promised support to countries threatened by communism, and the Marshall Plan, which funneled billions of dollars into Western Europe to rebuild economies and resist Soviet influence. The formation of NATO in 1949 solidified a military alliance of Western nations, countered by the Soviet-led Warsaw Pact in 1955, further deepening the divide. The nuclear arms race between the U.S. and the USSR, underpinned by the doctrine of mutually assured destruction, MAD, created an unprecedented level of global tension, with both sides amassing vast arsenals capable of annihilating each other in the world. Concurrently, the space race, sparked by the Soviet launch of Sputnik in 1957, became a symbolic battleground for technological and ideological supremacy, culminating in the U.S. moon landing in 1969. The Cold War also played out in a series of proxy wars where the U.S. and the Soviet Union supported opposing sides, such as in Korea, Vietnam, Afghanistan, and various conflicts in Latin America and Africa, where American and Soviet interests clashed over influence and ideological alignment. In Vietnam, the war became a quagmire for the U.S., sparking intense domestic protests and fundamentally altering American society and politics. Meanwhile, U.S. interventions in Latin America, such as the Bay of Pigs invasion and support for anti-communist regimes, often led to significant political and humanitarian consequences. The Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962 brought the world to the brink of nuclear war, highlighting the catastrophic potential of the Cold War's zero-sum game. During the 1970s, a period of détente led to a temporary easing of tensions, marked by the Strategic Arms Limitation Talks, SALT, and improved diplomatic communications. However, this period of relative calm gave way in the 1980s under President Ronald Reagan's administration, which took a more confrontational approach, exemplified by increased military spending and the Strategic Defense Initiative, SDI, an ambitious missile defense plan dubbed Star Wars. The Cold War's conclusion was driven by a combination of internal and external factors, including the Soviet Union's economic decline, the reformist policies of Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev, such as glasnost, openness, and perestroika, restructuring, and escalating pressures from independence movements in Eastern Europe. The fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989 and the subsequent dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1991 marked the definitive end of the Cold War, leading to a unipolar world dominated by the United States and a significant reordering of global power dynamics, diplomacy, and ideology.